I wish I could live up to 93 years. But 93 years of Mandela's life would be very daunting to emulate.
We look to South Africa, we still do, to provide that kind of leadership, to be a beacon on the hill for human rights and democracy in the rest of Africa.
The sad thing is this, that our current leaders are not really, I think to some extent, are squandering Mandela's legacy and are not really living to the ideals which Mandela stood for.
The Africans in South Africa made South Africa they destabilized it economically, as they did in Rhodesia's war, 7-year guerrilla war that overturned it. They freed themselves.
To my right, Mr. Peter Godwin, who himself was born in White Rose, Southern Rhodesia in 1957.
I covered the last 6 years of apartheid as a foreign correspondent for the London Times and for the BBC. I recently reviewed Mandela's most recent book, which is not a new book, it's a collection of his letters. One thing that is lacking in Mandela's own writings is self-pity. You will find no self-pity at all. This is, these are personal diaries, these just journals that he's keeping for himself, that he's not expecting to put out into the public. So you're hearing his innermost thoughts, and he never feels sorry for himself. It's quite extraordinary. Trust me, segregation was bad enough in places like Rhodesia and other places in Africa, but nowhere was it quite so hermetic as it was in South Africa. This was segregation of a kind which really the world has never seen before, in terms of its absoluteness, in terms of it just being complete, of these parallel worlds which never really met. When people talk about the scars of apartheid, I sometimes think we shouldn't really yet be calling them scars, because they haven't healed yet. You don't have that system for that long and walk away from it unscathed at the other end. And that's one of the reasons that South Africa faces astonishing challenges today. And it does. It faces very, very severe challenges. Index of socio-economic inequality. South Africa now has the highest Gini index in the world.
I grew up as a very angry young man. And what I wanted, really, was when I grew up, was to get hold of an AK-47 and shoot each and every white person I came across. That was me. And that view even got more entrenched in 1982, when the South African Defence Force had raided Lesotho and killed many of my comrades in Lesotho. About 52 people were killed. And we saw on TV the South African Minister of Defence saying, "Mission accomplished." When I came back in 1990, and Mandela came to my home province, that is Natal, and began telling us that we should throw our spears into the sea, because there was political violence going on, largely between us and the ANC. We really thought Mandela has lost his marbles. Some people even say, is this the same Mandela or another one whom they released from prison? And then secondly, I was one of those people who were basically inciting Mandela for engaging in peace talks with de Klerk. We actually called him a sellout. I was basically a middle-class South African who had 3 degrees, but I was still angry. And then you can imagine how many millions of other South Africans, less privileged and less fortunate than I am, are really angry, or were angry. And with hindsight, when I look at everything that Mandela stood for and how we used to criticize him, I'm really privileged that Mandela left us with a legacy of peace. Because you could imagine if people like us were let loose into society, there would have been no South Africa as we know it today. Because we're really, really angry. And one of the most powerful statements Mandela used to make was, if I can forgive after 27 years, after not being allowed to bury my wife and my eldest son, who upon you have done more than me not to be able to forgive? The most important legacy that Mandela has left for all of us. After 27 years in prison, and after all the things we as a country and he has gone through, is the belief and the hope that there can be a different world, that people of different races can live together and share the common space.
When I got there, I found a way. I went into Soweto. I spent almost 90% of my time in Soweto. I just drove in and waved at the guards on the entry to Soweto. Luckily, they didn't ask me to speak Zulu. A newspaper could not print Nelson Mandela's name in the newspaper in 1976 at the threat of being banned for just writing Nelson Mandela's name. If you went to a demonstration in Africa with a placard with Nelson Mandela's name on it, you ran the risk, Africans ran the risk of being hauled away under Section 6 of the Terrorism Act. No charge, and just put away. The ANC was banned, and if, in some cases, if you wore in any combination the tricolors of the ANC, you could be hauled away, simply for wearing in any combination those colors prominently of the ANC. It was a very rough time there, and Nelson Mandela's name was still whispered about. I was banned after I left South Africa. I was banned as a journalist. Not only was I banned from South Africa, my newspaper, Newsday, was banned, which is to say the South African government would not grant a visa to a Newsday reporter to go to South Africa. We would send reporters, white, black, Jewish, Italian, Irish, and they would apply for a visa at the consulate here. And I said, well, I would like to get a visa to go cover this great hot story in South Africa. And they said, what paper are you from? They said, the Newsday. And they said, does Mr. Bain still work for the paper?
Thank you. Thank you.
He fights for Africa. He didn't fight for South Africa, but he fights for Africa.
His dedication and sacrifices speak volumes, and it's worth celebrating.
We should just not look at Mandela and say, what did he do? But we should borrow a leaf from the way he lived his life.